Welcome back. In today's video, I thought we could talk about how to make an image look quote unquote cinematic. And this will just be one trick out of many that you can use regarding lighting in order to give your final image a bit more of that quote unquote cinematic look. And I say cinematic in a very loose way, just kind of as a general term to give it a more movie-like quality rather than something you might see in, let's say, a corporate video, something that needs to be a little more flat and bright. So what is the one thing that I did in this scene that's kind of giving it that quality? And there are a few things that you could say, but what we're going to talk about today is layers of light. And these layers of light define the space around me, and they leave some areas in darkness, giving it a little bit more mysterious ambiance, and it highlights other areas to kind of pull the eye, pull the focus to where I want the viewer to be looking. And so to do this, I used a pretty simple setup. I have two lights on me. I have a key light over here that's giving me this kind of orange tungsten look, and then I have a daylight balance light over on this side, adding just a little bit of fill and giving kind of a bluish tint to it. Now behind me, I have a practical light, and that's just your average incandescent bulb. And then off to the side, where we're getting just a tiny bit of glow, is a big window that has the kind of curtains pulled across and just letting the tiniest bit of light through. Now these layers help to guide the eye, as I was saying, and help to define this space that I'm in. And while we think of film as a 3D, maybe 4D medium, it does use the same techniques as a 2D medium like drawing or painting uses. And that's to define these three-dimensional shapes with light and shadow in order to make it more recognizable on the 2D screen that we're viewing it. Because we view it in the same way that we would view a painting or a drawing. You know, we see it on this flat surface, and it's only the contrast of light and dark that gives it the illusion of depth. Now, let's say I set up the lights like this. It doesn't have that same kind of push and pull that we saw earlier. It doesn't have that same kind of attention-grabbing, stark contrast that was really kind of making the image look whole. And that's because we don't have that same sort of layering going on. All we have is darkness, light, darkness. But when we add another layer to that, the image changes. It interests the eye more. And now we have a place to focus. And while we're using other film ideas and theories to kind of contribute to this nice, pleasing looking image, like the rule of thirds and using contrasting lighting, what we're mainly doing is pulling dark light, dark light, dark light, and using these layers to kind of add depth to the image. And that's the key thing that I want to kind of hammer home, is this idea of using depth. Because the unique thing with photography and filmmaking is you get to use the three-dimensional space that we live in. You're not stuck to a 2D plane like you are with drawing and painting and other sorts of kind of 2D creating. With this medium, we have the ability to use the Z-axis, and we can use that to our advantage to help simulate this depth. Now you might say, well, John, that's all fine and good, but I don't have a large space to use that Z-axis to really take advantage of the depth that we get in this kind of 3D world where we're able to film. Well, you could do something like this. This is using a small corner of my living room, and we're getting a similar effect where we have light we have darkness, we have another light, we have dark, and we have another little glow right here. And it's all just about controlling light. If you're interested in the light that I'm using right now to kind of light myself, it's actually a very affordable light. It's a hot light, it's from Lowell, and it's the Omni. And you can pick these up for $200 for maybe a kit of a few of these lights. I have another video where I talk more about them, and I do another lighting setup with a little bit more color, and I'll link that right up here in the top corner if you want to check that out. Now, so what I'm doing is I'm using the barn doors that come on this light, and I'm shaping it so only a sliver of the light comes through. And you can get a similar effect if you use maybe a 5-in-1 reflector and you use the negative fill side and kind of flag off some of that light. Or you could use actual flags and flag off light, or maybe you use cinefoil and you kind of put that around your light to shape it. You know, there are a lot of ways you can go about shaping light, and there are a lot of DIY hacks that you can use if you don't want to pay a lot of money to get a big modifier, if you don't want to buy flags and stands for them. But we're really not going to dive too much into the DIY of different ways that you can shape light in this video. If that's something you'd be interested in seeing in future videos, let me know, and maybe I'll make a video about that. But like I was saying, we're just controlling the light, and that's the big thing with creating an image that has more intrigue. Lighting is all about control, and we want to control where that light goes, how it's hitting our subject. Right now we're choosing to have a very contrasty, very hard light look that's giving us this really strong definition between the light, the shadow, and that's helping create that sense of depth and 3-dimension. And just like that, we're back to a more standard way of lighting a person that you might see on YouTube or that you might see in an interview, where we have a nice soft diffuse light and a nice little fill light over here, giving my face a less harsh look. But we still are using the ideas of layering light by having dark right here on the edge, a little bit of light right here, and then we have a little bit of darkness right there, and then we have light over here. And we have kind of a lighter variation of that on my face, where we have a light and a dark. But it's all just about kind of using the contrast to add shape and dimension. And I wanted to do something like this to show that you don't necessarily need a hard light in order to pull something like this off. You can use a soft diffuse light on your subject and still have that kind of depth of light and dark. And so let's jump to the computer now, and we'll look at a couple stills from some movies, and we'll kind of break down how they have light, dark, and how they use this layered effect in order to highlight certain features of the frame and how it adds to that sort of quote-unquote cinematic quality. All right, so we're at the computer and I have a couple stills pulled up on my iPad. So let's dive right into the first one here. And so this first one is from The Revenant, if you recognize it. And as you can see, just at first glance, it is a very pleasing, a very dynamic image to look at. And as we can see right here, we start off with this area of shadow, a very, very deep shadow. We can pretty much see nothing in this whole area. And then we slowly move into this area of light. And now these kind of layers, these areas of light and dark, it's all relative to kind of what's around it. So this area relative to this is light, and then light here, dark here. But this area relative to this area is dark here, light here. So how these areas of light and dark sit next to each other can change one area from a dark to a light, and another area from a light to a dark. And, you know, if we really want to get in there and break it down, we have a dark, then we have a light here, and then we go back to dark with this little sliver here. And then we have this wide area of light. And they do something that I didn't do, which was putting the character, the main focus, as a source of darkness. So as you can see, within this background, they are dark, and then it goes back to light over here. And so you can really see how many layers that they're able to fit in. And this kind of shows what you can do in like a wide shot, where you have a lot of room to kind of maneuver light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And these trees also help add little slivers of dark throughout this sort of light landscape that they're in. So let's go to the next one. So here we have an image from Skyfall, and it's a really, really interesting image to look at. You can see we have this intense light right on James Bond's eye. But let's break it down as far as layers of light go. We're starting with darkness again on the edge, and then we move to this area of light. And then we kind of have this light little sliver of dark right here. And we have this bright area. Now this is doing layers both horizontally across as well as vertically up and down. Vertically, we have a layer of darkness at the top, light, darkness at the bottom. Horizontally, we have dark, light, this little sliver of darkness right there, light, dark, light. And then this area, we can consider it light, and then it does get a little bit dark up here. But for our main focus, we have that dark light, dark light, dark light. And we can break this down as light here, light here, and then dark down here. And so you can see there's a lot of layers in there. And let's look at another example. Here we have No Country for Old Men. And this really kind of hammers home the idea of light dark in order to kind of shape a character. So we have this tiny little bit of darkness right here to contrast this light and to really add it as one of those light areas. And then we move into darkness on this character's face right here. So we have this area of dark right here. Then we have an area of light right there, kind of showing the character, revealing their face and adding a little depth and dimension to their body. And then when we look at it comparatively, this is light and then this is dark. This little area of light here contrasts the dark background. Then we have an actual light. Similar to how we have a light right there, we have a physical, practical light, which is a great way to not only add layers of light and dark, but it also gives an idea of, okay, this light on this character's face is coming from this light right here. Even if they have a huge light off to the side, kind of beaming light in to really light the character, kind of fools the mind and makes it a little more believable. Back to the layers, we have light here, and then we have dark right here. And so that really gives a lot of dimension and depth to this otherwise fairly, small room. It's not like they're shooting in some huge tunnel like we were seeing in the Skyfall. I'll pull that up. In this Skyfall image, we have a lot more depth along the z-axis, but it's a lot tighter. And then in this No Country for Old Men, it's a bit wider, but it's a lot less depth along the z-axis, yet we're still getting that layering in both. So it's using it vertically, using it horizontally, or using it along the z-axis. All right, that's going to finish up this video. I hope you were able to learn something about this idea of layering light and using it to kind of define the space around you and add more contrast and depth and dimension in order to convey a more cinematic look. If you liked the video, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. If you want to check out other videos that I've done, otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Say bye, Luna. Say bye.